May the peace of the Lord be unto us today and forevermore. Thank the Lord that we are not deserved. Today He's giving the gift of life to us again. We are about to continue with the lessons that we started some time, but then we had to pause and then look at some other teachings. We are going to go back and have a quick recap of what we've discussed so far, so that it's going to recall our memories. So the topic of discussion was the master of drifting. So we're looking at the genesis or the beginning of the creation, how the Lord was working with man, and then man at some point left the Lord.
Genesis chapter 3, verse 23 to 24. The Bible said, Wabro Yankupon Paul Adam, and a year hour. When Yankupon and Yakuba Cobra, Umrao, Mao, Umina, people.
And so look at Genesis chapter 3, verse 3, Genesis chapter 3. Looking at Genesis chapter 23 to 24, we looked at the laws that were given to Adam and Eve, but unfortunately they couldn't obey the law to the end.
Now, yes, I have Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. And then James chapter 2, verse 23, Abraham said, Abraham, never paying so long, no funny Nipano, yet in the Bible, he did on others.
So we look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, and then James. Okay, and then also James 2, verse 23. And we realized that Abraham was the only one, that around his time he was the only one as well.
Now, yes, I have Genesis 19:15. Abraham says, Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot, and then the man you pet, and who I hope you gave you, and you
We also looked at Genesis chapter 19, verse 15, and we realized that Lot and his two sons were the only ones who were saved in the whole of that city.
Yes, Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 to 8. If you can say Noah, so any year, any ma, a year, and one young, Genesis
5, 8, we also realized that Noah and with his wife and his sons and then his sons and wives were those who were also saved during this time.
Now, verse 14, is who said, Israel, my own, you free, human successful, a dome of Canaan successful. When you don't or it's so, and I'm as for game.
And we also looked at Numbers 14, 24 to 28. We also read the account of the Israelites when they were taken from captivity. They got to a time that most of them were also lost at the time.
Now, by John chapter 6, verse 66, Christians who freely do a say, nay, a sian for who are now, woman now, Johnny free, the chief, and now I saw them.
John 6 also the account of Christ, when he also had his disciples, but most of them also drifted away because of what they faced.
Now, as I read Acts chapter 8, verse 32, Abraham said, a sian for do or more free, Christ to achieve a brag, now here home.
Acts 8:38, it's also given as the account of even the apostles when they were following Christ, most of them also drifted away.
Now, New Word John chapter 21, Abraham said, or more, or Suma, Christ to Suma, or more, Christ to achieve or apple.
And also John 21, after the death of Christ, we also realized that the message or what they were sent to do, they also left it and also went to do fishing.
Now, yes, I be as my form, Acts chapter chapter 1, verse 15 to 26, it says, Christ will do a dear or say, Brenna, that Jania, or then every year in fever and me and son, and any nice one. A young folk would know now or come woman, now obey or have a dream.
And so Acts, we also read that all the apostles or the disciples of Christ, also called out. When we add all of them together, they were around 120.
Yes, na people need research.
It wasn't that there weren't a lot of people following Christ. We can record the account of when Christ also gave food to over 5,000 people. But because most of them didn't listen to Christ, all of them drifted away or left Christ.
Let's have a Revelation chapter 3, verse 8.
We also looked at Revelation chapter 3, verse 8.
If you can say Philadelphia, as a non-quania, you penny a short cut out of the command. You can say, or one number and
we also recall the account that the church at Philadelphia was the only church that they were following the instructions for the rules that were given to them. And there were 7 churches, and it was just one that was the servant of the Lord.
Now, Bible 7 said, and so on, I did hear that section of Omusa, you do a holding, a captain, you be
And the sad thing is, the Bible also gives the account that the 7 churches, they were quite small in terms of finances, their numbers, and everything that they were doing, they were quite small.
Now, yes, sir, Christo, the word she, Wabra, as a free as yet, na a dore, na a sian for no, a dorsal. Your kind church history. You will bring your high friend in that age as a no, echo soon, bear, you feel him as a no, and them soon one, or more, no parent, Ayera.
We also looked at the account of when, after the death of Christ, when the church started, a lot of people joining the church. We also looked at the dark ages when there were many of the individuals within the church who also left the church.
Sabreno Ayabra. Na ihun that Christ force to say na Roma and Mutibia in our sword on your time and your share and your song at all. You can cool Piara, who grab Bible, or what Christ used to be.
And at the time, there was a lot of fear, but there were a lot of fear among the Christians because the Roman Empire were giving a very strict punishments to those who were holding the Bible and calling themselves Christians and proclaiming Christ. And for that reason, the name the name that the church had already gotten was also it got missing, or it was out of the scene. And so the church went through a very dark moments for almost 1,000 years.
Ana enyanu bi ehya ase ehwehwe trustin mu ehun se asore bi ewo trustin mu a Christ Yesu edi nipa bia beto sa asore no ema esuafo no so ebe free asore no asema nipa dodo egidi ye ebe wure.
It was around that time that we had some individuals go back into the Bible, do some studies, and realized that there was a church that was started, and there were disciples who were following the footsteps of the church. And there were a lot of people who were baptized and were part of the church.
It is the Bible said restoration. She said, "I don't know Anna Ayera, and the year
And so during that time, we have a term called restoration, which means that there was something in existence that unfortunately it had got missing, and so it was coming back into existence again.
And that say or time any nipa sure issue nyankopon sure di bache nyankopon ti and ma asem no era.
And it wasn't anything, it was just the fear that people didn't have in the Lord, but feared the individual. That is the reason why the word got missing.
Now, yes, Revelation chapter 12, verse 3, if you can say, Lucifer ɔyɛ ɔbonsam no wotumi ɛdaadaa Onyankopɔn abɔfoɔ a ɔyɛɛ wɔn no wokyɛ mu mmiɛnsa wotumi fa mu mmienu.
We also look at Revelation chapter 12 verse 3, where Lucifer, who was the Satan, had the authority to be able to convince at least 1/3 of the angels of Christ, of the Lord.
Now, Isaiah chapter 40 verse 13, Ebekum said, onipa biara ntumi mma Onyankopɔn adwene, onipa biara ntumi nkyerɛ Onyankopɔn that's the way.
We also looked at Isaiah 40 verse 13, saying that no man on earth will be able to decide for the Lord or will be able to think for the Lord to do what they want.
The force said, yes, sir, or nipa from, or nipa to say,
so all these names that we've mentioned or all these we've recorded, it's not that they are superhumans, they are just humans just as we are.
Yeah, the man pastor said, you slow nipa a chain Onyankopɔn.
The reason why it happens that way is that we fear the individuals more than the Lord.
Abra was said, you heard the trust of no aska, and you dissolve a purpose in the city, not yet nipa and bring in ready.
So the time that we are supposed to look into the Bible and follow the instructions that we've been given, we just base on what individuals think or what individuals are proposing, and then we follow their intents. And before we realize, then we've already drifted.
Now, and no, and you heard at chapter 4, verse 19. Peter, or no, there said, baby, a Christ is Becono, or one of Beco. One thing, M.I.N. said Christ is Acts chapter 2, Pentecost that, or sorry, tonight, Cassava and about 3,000 HT, or no smart or fireman, or one some period.
And that is where we look at Acts chapter 4, verse 19, where Peter, who at the time stood when he was around the dawn, spoke throughout around the Pentecost day, made sure that people were baptized. We looked at the accounts that he also got drifted.
Now, a said, Peter, no, he participated.
So it's not anything extraordinary because Peter was just as human as we are.
Now, and I'm also, and I will give a 10 children in Nipa and Emma Peter Niba.
And it was through Paul that he was also able to rebuke him in front of many individuals for him to also come to his realization. If it had happened to maybe you and I, we would have left the church.
We said, Obia, Christ Jesus, and they are Safno, and Safwa, a share, and Kassaye, a P. Christ Jesus, Nikia, Anno, and my liberty will. When I am from so, I will be at an hour time of Parano. I will buy a chair, each in
because Peter, who was the one who was giving the keys to the church and in front of people speaking, he is now being rebuked by the one who was hating Christ, who is Paul.
Now, I said, Bishop said, yeah,
and so the question is, if we were to be in the same shoes, what would we have done?
And the fear woman said, you so soon know your posture, he said, so
the lesson in this is that in Christianity we continuously learn because Satan is more fearsome than we think that he is. And the next thing is that whilst we are learning, we should also humble ourselves to be able to learn everything that we want to learn.
And yes, sir, now me ira or pine, now ubi, and as me see, I will continue to say, no, you mind this as well. You says, you be.
If not, and he is drifted or anyone is drifting, and someone else is drawing our attention, we may just take the person to be nobody, and so we are not going to listen to them. That is why Christ informs us that if you want to be the leader, then be like the younger kid. And so in Christianity, we do not use arrogance, or we do not use that I know everything to worship Christ. It is through calmness and humbleness that we are able to learn or to obey Christ.
Now, if you say a degree, and then a diploma, and a doctorate, be a young, ain't why I ain't Bible.
We also realize that our degrees, our diplomas, our certificates, our masters and PhDs will not enable us to understand fully the word of Christ. And that is also gaining some influence within our Christian life.
Now, Christosom, Christos Yashe, Nadi Yono, Sapepe, and because a year, ages are a film, and
and just Christ, as He has already proposed for what is going to happen, that is what needs to happen now and ages and years to come.
And on a young kind of one who is Amro, Na,
and this is what
we
are still recalling our memories because we left off this lesson a while ago.
Oh, say, Yeti, as I said, your son, no man, Yati, no day, a man of crosswalk, na yen sunny home, David.
Therefore, we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip.
Verse 2, verse 1, they say, and near my Yatiano, they say, yes, she free Christian Nancy. If I see a soul, yes, he is so much. He is so much an
and so the verse 1 is saying that all the things that we've heard or we've learned from Christ, we need to hold it very well. Not just holding it, but we need to hold it more than we have. The reason why we are being told to hold on to it is more than what we are currently holding on to. If we are able to know that Satan had been in existence even in the beginning of creation and he saw everything during creation.
Now, Bible knows boy say you may need to say
the Bible is also giving us a portion that we should be wise, we should be vigilant. More than a snake. The snake is also representative of Satan. And so sometimes we need to learn some knowledge from Satan because we came to meet Satan. And if we are unable to hold it more stronger because of the strength that Satan has, he's going to drift us away from Christ.
Verse 2 they say, now say accept now above force can Timmy. Namraton ne asworden biara nyana etia esa.
For if the words spoken by angels were steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense of reward.
So ye say disosumu untimi kase ya na yede.
And so we looked at it in Christianity. I cannot say that, okay, so when we do it that way, what will it do?
Oh, wait a second,
or this one will not do anything at all.
Oh, maybe say,
oh, I think this is going to help us. I have intent that this is going to go over.
Oh, me feel say,
I have this feeling that if we are just to fix it that way, it will be wrong.
And my if it's verse 2, they say, and someone will now go for us to me. Namra ton ne asworden biara nyana ketia.
And so we shouldn't forget that in verse 2, it says that for if the word spoken by the angels was steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense of reward. And so transgression and disobedience, they had their own consequences. So this means that how we are worshiping the Lord, everything that we do contrary, we are going to get the consequences.
Now, and never the judgment of God.
And as time goes on, when we have enough time, we are going to go back and look at the judgment of God.
Now, if you say, the last day,
and we will realize that the judgments or God's own way of making sure that He punishes us is not just on the last day of judgment.
Your in-time judgment, a day and one such thing ever bang the sword.
And so we have the interim, or even in time, that what you've done against the Lord, you may receive your own consequences within whilst you are still living.
Na sa asotwe no Mr. Chairman ni be yo Kristo ni kra na etimi koso ediminya.
And these punishments that we're going to receive from the things that we've done to the Lord or against the Lord, even if you convert yourself to become a Christian, these things can still have influence or consequences on you.
Eno na ebemu a Kristo di na asem echichire ye say itwa say nya abodwechere long suffering.
And so this is when we go through these struggles, the Lord is also using his own words to comfort us to say that we need to have long suffering.
If we say because
no amount of prayer will be able to take away that punishment. It becomes like a chronic illness. That no matter how you want to cure it, it's not curable.
Judgment.
And those are in-time judgments that you need to have right after you've committed a sin.
The final judgment.
And if I don't have a change of mind, I am going to meet the final judgment.
In Hebrews chapter 2, verse 2, it says, as for them,
and that is why Hebrews chapter 2, verse 2 is saying that every transgression and disobedience also receive its consequences of punishment, just as it is deserved of it.
And
this is why we need to be vigilant and we need to fear so that we don't drift away from the salvation that we have.
Verse 3 or say, yes, so say mu kwantie kesiye a etise ya yebedwane afimu esen.
And so verse 3 says that how shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation?
And no na Awurade free ase kan ye no wona wote ye no hye mu den man,
which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him.
Inti ahotefo enkwagye no Onyankopɔn egesi eni de ho hyehyeye ene ho mra e de amaye ekupekwawie.
So brethren, the salvation the Lord has just brought it in front of us, giving us the rules and its regulations about the salvation, and he's done.
And she biara ntimi free baby ebeka san kwagye a odi adom ye ehyehyeye no ho e ma ne yi.
There are no other regulations or guided regulations that will come to complement or to be added to what we have on this salvation at the moment. And so your knowledge and your intuitions cannot be added onto it. The government's guidance, the rules, regulations cannot be added onto it. So your family struggles or your family's growth cannot be added onto this for you to be able to be well. So brethren, just as it is, that is exactly how it needs to be. Because the greatest who created me and you, who gave us the salvation, is the one who has added rules and regulations to it. That's exactly why we need to obey what we have been instructed to do. We looked at three things.
The kind of things we should know about drifting.
That's the first thing we looked at, things we need to know about drifting.
And because you fact or why
the things we need to know or things we need to be aware of drifting. If you are able to stay with someone, or if you can stay with someone, unless you know how the person is. Before you can understand the person and just take the person as the person is. So that you are going to have peace between the two of you. So what are we going to do to be able to understand or know how drifting is? And that is what brings the second one.
Common signs of drifting.
These are what we need to know, or these are the common signs that we can see when we are drifting.
we or why, and I said, we and your wife.
So these are things that are going to show for us to be able to differentiate between this to be drifted and this not to be drifted.
Now the toss me and son, or why.
And the last one is the medicine to be drifted.
If you say, me wire, if I said, a pine and a fast one, million through, I'm a free or why.
Once I begin to realize that I am drifting, I need to be able to identify what will help me for me to come back from the drifting. And so we all need the medicine for drifting.
In Acts chapter 27, verse 13.
So we look at Acts chapter 27, verse 13.
And the Paul, or how we are home, a brass strap for, and the name for Casari with him. Na a shame how more a team sponsor a year say a copy, they know a year case study, and a decision for why.
We look at Paul when he was being sent to the king at Caesarea. When the boats that they were taking there, they were a bit of turbulence, and so they needed to.
Na anafo from free as ye boy eh won say won san akande wodi si won anim no na wotu seche no nam ano a obey greater.
And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, losing things, they sailed close by Avon or Crete.
Na oma ben greater almost kono so oma ben greater to mo kun say bia omo kono omo nye adurawe nti anko e washing no omo toy said that bia e shen betimi ejina na enkogo ano no.
And so after they went, they realized that they were close to Crete, and so they needed to put in the anchor so that they would get close to the shore.
And so the bia e Christ suma brabo ye bo ni say senya kan kwanje na bie.
Sometimes the way we live our lives as Christians, we suppose or we think that we've already gotten the salvation.
Say yes, if we any way you do money is say mono, it say oh
But just as the church is growing in numbers and in our finances, we think we've already gotten what we need.
Sana Paul any asrafo no any that's all not it.
That's the same way Paul and then the soldiers, they had their vision to be like.
No money say omo
they thought they had already reached.
And untino a share no such anchor no omato e atwe a share break.
And so they needed to just drop in the anchor to just put a stop to the boat. 14.
Na anche na from a case bia wo friend of a tifia prayer from far greater so beboye.
So 14, but not long after they arose against it, a tempestuous wind called a reclined on. And when the ship was caught, it could not bear up, and into the wind we let it drop. And so when they all thought that they already reached where they were heading to,
14 they say, and China from a jump and to be ever bought a shame, a 10 shame. And
so 14 is saying that not long ago that they had a very strong wind come to just blow up the boat, and then they had to capsize.
Ubia a shine no omutimi control no e dey adu bia omo fa wi no afege frama na afa shine no e dey dey ko baby obia.
And after they control the boat or the ship to its destination, now wind, the strongest one, has now blown the ship and is now taking it anywhere it wants.
And take for sad or why
brethren, this is how drifting.
And from FM ye say oh e nyame som no ye bibia.
So we did ask as individuals, we think that we've done everything about our Christianity. And before we realize something very small, something very tiny will now drift us away from the Lord. It's the same way with the whole church. We are going through our things just in order, just as we want it to be. But all out of a sudden, we see that we have a very strong wind coming to just blow the church out of our own vision that we have. And this is the kind of call that drifts in the past.
Verse 15. Na a cherry shine na etumi inhyia mframa no ye ma no tweye.
Verse 15, and when the ship was caught and we could not bear up into the wind, we let her dry.
No, afei, omo hwese de mframa na no din sitie na no omo ye hu hwie enti de be ni se omo gya bibia mu twa seche no anko no ma mframa no etwen wo omo ko be bibia.
Now after having the experience of the strongest wind, now they couldn't control the ship again, and so they needed to cut off the anchor and allow the wind to just take them anywhere. And this is exactly how it is in our Christian life. If you and I are unable to humble ourselves to learn what we need to learn before we realize we have drifted away from Christ. Especially when someone is drawing our attention and rebuking us to what we are doing wrong, we now tend to think that this person does not want us or do not like us. It's the same way within the church. Oh, we know so much. And so when the church is doing so many things and it is not going the right way, and out of the Lord's own intuition get someone to draw the church's attention, you see leaders now coming to show their power that they have. We have the younger ones also coming to demonstrate how much they know. And before the church will realize that all the things that is happening, we cannot do anything about it. All things goes. And so what is going to happen is that we're going to accept anything that happens. Everyone is just going to leave it, and the church will just go as it was. And that's exactly how they did. Because they couldn't take control over the ship, they allowed the wind to just blow it anyhow it wants. And if drifting happens, it just takes us and just manipulates us to do whatever it wants, not what we want to do.
Verse 16. Na yedimirika kofa support kitwe bia wo friend no Claudia asie no ye bo modern ansa na yeresuso kuduonu.
And running under a certain island, which is called Claudia, we had much work to come by the boat.
Now, you know, say, on the miracle of fire, Claudia.
And also, when you're reading the tree, says that they were running through Claudia.
And nobody did miracle.
And so it wasn't them who were running.
It
was the great wind that was blowing the ship.
Second line, the sentence now says, ye were modern and sun yet sample as so put.
And so the second sentence in verse 16 said, we had much work to come by the boat. And so they had to do a lot of work to be able to even hold the ship. And so it was the wind that was directing the ship as to what it needs to, where it needs to head to, and what it needs to happen. And that's exactly how drifting is within our life. When drifting comes to take us away, whatever it wants is what it does to us. And that's why someone standing somewhere will now say that, oh, this brother, and this is what he's doing. It's not that individual, it's the drifting that is working. If we allow ourselves to be drifted away, that's exactly how it is going to be. So drifting is more like taking an alcohol. If you're taking alcohol, you can do whatever you want to do. You are conscious of yourself. Once you get drunk and you get to do whatever you want, and when you resurface or when you are sober and we tell you what you were doing, you may not even want to even know what you were doing. And so drifting will just lead us to do what we want when we are not conscious of ourselves.
Or why you any real Peter?
It was drifting that took away Peter.
Wabraham concrete Gary no customer in 3,000.
When the Holy Spirit was filled with him and he was able to speak to get 3,000 people to be baptized.
Or why you friend any Emmanuel said, Christosome, you were due for and you want to move for.
It was drifting that blinded him for him to know that even within Christianity, we are Jews and we have the Israelites.
Now, he said, one year they say, Christosome, you need Oba in your berema, you need you, any Abramuni, any Naya, a Bako, a Christian.
And the Holy Spirit had already not informed him. He had informed him already that even in Christianity, we do not have a woman, we do not have a man, we do not have someone from a different tribe, someone from a different tribe. We are all one.
Or no caneno, no Casano Pareno, or no moon, and no Maho, or why Ariana, what shall he say? And yes, I did.
And so this same person who was speaking the truth, and he's the same person who had been taken away by drifting and is now saying it is not the truth.
I'm for son or why.
Brethren, this is how drifting is.
Answer when you remember for everyone, sir, I saw that you and now train no one service, see, Bible, see, Jinano. Not what to give me and
so before you come to the realization, for you to go back into the Bible, to not come to your senses, that this is where I need to be as a Christian, then you have gone through a lot.
And now the 16 no extra yen said was almost prayer and son of God air so could.
That is where verse 16 is saying that they really struggled before they could even hold onto the ship. 17. Now Oma Swan Wobo na Oma Swan. One man, watch a cherry shine na was so sad a beer, or Beko, Akoshe, and Yantam Sudenti, would shine, ship piano, na a chain one side. 17. Which when they had taken up, they used helps and girding the ship and fearing lest they shall fall into the quicksand, straight sail, and so were driven.
Abraham when he bow almost one, Pay say, Ombekwa Achikudono Ejinahono is a movie say brow.
And when even they had come to the realization they wanted to even have control over the ship, they were also drawn by fear.
If we brow say, hey, yeah, put on a piano, a sack of ship
the fear that came to them was even when thinking of getting control of the ship to even have it go to the shore safely, they were even thinking that this could even be worse and they would be capsized and we are all going to die. And so they left it and allowed the wind to also blow them away. This is how Britain experienced. So sometimes when we realize and we come to our senses, we want to come back to the truth. We now have fear of our crowdedness. And so what are the leaders going to say? What are the youth, the young ones, what are they going to say? And if we come to our realization, if we come to our sense, they are all going to go away. We are just going to force ourselves into so much within the church. So let's take our time and let's allow it to just be like that. And so just as Paul and the soldiers, they were drawn with fear, thinking that when they get control of the boat or the ship, they were going to just hit somewhere. They allowed it for the wind to just blow them away. And fear is going to drown the church if we just say that if one or two individuals are going to do the right thing, or allow it for us to just live within it and allow it to be anyhow it's going to be.
1 year is
so drifting, when it comes, it also adds onto it fear. So that we do not come back to our senses.
Ye
So that we can just die in our sins.
Verse 18. Na mframano bo den de yen chinchini na ade acheye no wototo hye mu niema bi egui.
And when being exceedingly tossed with a tempest, the next day he lightened the ship.
No, afei on be kin say, oh, eniema na egu hye mu no ana ma haw eni yen kwa ho aba asem.
And now they were thinking that it's maybe the things that is within the ship that is maybe causing the troubles for them in the ship. So now let's just put some out for the things, let's just drop them into the sea so that we will be lighter a bit. And that's exactly how drifting is. When I'm being drifted, it is not just by myself, it is wanting or it is looking for someone else who can drift as well. And so if there is a wind that is blowing the boat or the ship, I believe that when the ship is lighter, that is how the ship will be able to blow it away. But now the wind, that's the drifting, is now telling them that the boat is too heavy, and so the things that is causing the heaviness, they should just pour them out into the sea. So if you are a man and you are drifting away from Christ, don't think about it that you are just the only one drifting. Your wife, it is going to be your wife next time. It's going to be your kids the next time. If you don't come back to your senses, before you realize everything behind you is already spoiled. And so if you come into the church, that individuals who are looking up to some people and learning from them. And if the person who is drifting is also thinking about him or herself, the person is also being selfish.
If you say,
because just as I am drifting, the person who is looking up to me and learning from me is also thinking that the good thing we are also going to drift away. That's exactly how the whole church is also going to. And so when the whole church is also drifting, the fear that comes with it is that this church has the numbers, they have finances. And so comparing the smaller churches that is also growing, we are now looking at the bigger church and thinking that that's exactly the same way we all followed to have that authority. So they are also thinking that they want to grow and be like the bigger one. Therefore, they are also going to go through the same way. Before the church will realize, then the smaller church together with the bigger church before drifting.
Roman Catholic Church. No one want to do.
The Roman Catholic Church that we know, they used not to pay drums.
Catholic Church, no one organ.
The Catholic Church never used to play organ.
Never so no, and I'm saying, one person, one man, the baby, any extra the omoye, now almost no moon, almost shall say, almost animal.
Just because they want a few people to like what they were doing and to stay within the church, they started doing all these things.
My mom, a critical example.
Let me give you a critical example.
Sabbatarian, or why they get to a name.
This Sabbath, the individual church, Sabbath. So the SDA church, when it started, they were not allowing women to lead the church. They were not having the mouth organs for the people. But when they started singing, they realized that they have a good voice, they can sing. That is where the Satan also started stealing them away. They started with the mouth organ. And so they weren't using the mouth organ to sing. They were just using that to break up the theme for the song.
They
were just using that to give the theme for the song. Now they are now using the organs and adding it to their singing whilst they are in the church. And that's exactly how Brereton is. When it is coming, it is taking its time. Okay, so it's like a tree we have in Ghana. The first time I'm hearing that. So there's a tree in Ghana. He said we call it the parasite tree.
So a piano set a mubro and a tuo and a piano.
Okay, so we have eagles. They are the ones who plant. Okay. So he said that we have two kinds of birds. So owl and dove. They are the ones who plant that tree onto another tree.
So
okay, so it's very tiny when it begins to just grow on a branch of the tree.
Now, Onya efifria, your country Diane said, oh, we need
and so when this tiny tree is growing, what it says that I'm not a bigger tree, so it just allows me to grow on this tiny branch. So you just allow that kind of tree to continue to grow. And so before you realize it is using its roots to just entangle the tree. When it started, it's very tiny, so you may think it's not going to do anything. For every tree, when it is growing, we have the top roots going down. You say that it is the stem that is going up. But that is not how that parasite tree is. It is actually the roots that is used to form the whole tree. So just as the root is going by or just entangling itself by the tree, this bigger tree would think it's nothing. And after it has entangled around the bigger tree and gets into the roots or the soil, it's now going to develop to be able to get a lot of roots to be able to entangle the main tree. And now after it has entangled around the bigger tree, it is now going to squeeze the bigger tree. It is going to entangle and strangle this tree until it cannot grow anymore. And so what happens is, what is using the roots around the bigger tree, it is taking all the nutrients from the bigger tree, and also when it gets to the soil, it's taking all the nutrients from the soil. And so the bigger tree just allowing the smaller tree, the parasite tree, to just grow. It is now having challenge. It is now struggling with it, with the nutrients in the soil. And after the struggle for the same nutrients and water, it is now going to fight the bigger tree again to just squeeze it out of it. Before the bigger tree will realize it is now dead. And it is now the parasite tree that is replacing the bigger tree. That's exactly how it hurts. And when it is coming, it's just steady. Once you allow it to sit, it now takes over everything. Everything that we begin to do is now going to be the intentions of man. If you say because it is the doctrine that is doing everything. Question time. Time for questions.
sɛ bi sɛ ni ma yɛnto aso ɛnu ti ahotɛfoɔ mɛsrɛ si yɛbɛhwɛ yɛn ho yie.
If there are no questions, let's continue. So, brethren, I would entreat for us to be careful.
Sɛ ankwanpɛ fam ɔwayɛ ne ho ɔden ne mu odu sen yɛ.
Just as the individual person is very stronger than ourselves.
Sɛ ɛyɛ asafo fam ɔwayɛ ne ho ɔden ne mu odu sen yɛ.
Just as the church drifting is also stronger than the king.
Asimbisa.
My question, the teaching on dreams is a bit wide. I think you give more specific areas of the life of Christians that the dreams like one question, pay attention to some specific areas of Christians dreams so that we do that we should take at least it was just one, it was not really direct.
Okay. Your question is you can't wire drifting a idea in Mudo and Nuntino, you bet me actually baby potting a wire beat me FBI now get me actually Musu I made me actually Musu.
So I believe we all had a question. He said that we've discussed it quite broadly, and so can we have very specifics for individuals for us to look out for in terms of drifting?
Okay. The passage the Yesiano, Yabebaso, Yababo Nema P. So, Chelsea, Chelsea, Hawaii, ABI.
So the truth is, what we are discussing, we are going to go back to it and then discuss it very specifically to know that these are the things that we are doing that indicates that drifting or we are drifting away.
I feel the answer is you be
So we started not long ago and we had to pause and then go back to another teachings or lessons, and we are now getting back to it. And so all that we are looking at are some of the things we need to just be aware of in terms of drifting. And so what we are looking at today is that drifting do not need any kind of effort before it is going to take us away or drift us. Before we are aware, we've already been drifted.
So when
we finish with this, we are going to look at the common signs that we can identify that this is just as drifting is. And that's where we're going to have access to your question.
And Sana, if you who say why the mechanism you sit here now, you who find the first one, you be here free.
Once we're able to identify it, discuss it thoroughly about drifting, we can now know what to do to be able to take us and to take ourselves away from drifting. Any other questions?
Akase, I'm ready. B. It doesn't. It is an unconscious process. Just say, or why you or why you so you na
So we will not be aware when drifting is coming before we realize we've already been taken away.
Oh, more can say, hey, me your why it may bow. I'm going near the whole mother.
Drifting is not going to knock and inform you that I am drifting and coming so that you can be aware of it.
Now, verse 14, I think, Acts 27, verse 14, or see in Bofrimu.
So, Acts 27:14, when we read it, it says that out of nowhere or just out of the blue or out of a sudden.
So, just say, no one in Nampo said, yes, so
it means that they were not thinking about it, that anything of that sort, the wind can just blow them away like that. That's exactly how drifting is. Drifting takes us away when we are not conscious. When you are not aware, then drifting is just taking all away.
Now, The same thing, Anna, a was Galatians chapter 1, verse 6.
It is the same thing that it is in Christianity. Let's look at something from Galatians chapter 1.
Galatians chapter 1, verse 6. Paul said, anyone, Galatians no, Paul is free as here.
And so this is the church of Galatians that Paul started.
Now, on 22 years so, and concept for good room, and what did you man?
And when he had gone through other churches to also continue the evangelism.
Or by and not Galatians no, how white every.
And when he had come back, the Galatians church that he started had drifted away from the truth.
And no one, yes, so bit here to ye.
This is not any news, it can happen to us.
A bina AC Ghana.
It's the same thing happening in Ghana now.
It's a cookie and a Pentecostals.
That so many churches of Christ are turning into Pentecostals.
Maybe have a piano person ye catch.
When he was coming to UK, where he went to worship with before coming,
I will tell for what to buy now round.
if you were to be part of this service, you would just be too sorry for yourself.
Pentecost won't find.
The Pentecost church is just far from what he saw.
When he had
finished, he called the preacher.
as a close down, and then we'll press it on the church and yet at the one.
The church is worthy, or the church is good in terms of finances. The kind of building that they have.
Me froze a penny. Now, me king, I be a season. As soon as a penny in the kind said,
when he called the preacher and tried to draw his attention to what is happening, what the preacher said is that.
I said, bro, you walk when you put here.
And so the preacher said that what he has seen is giving power.
Freezer or can't a brow by or so I broke bones in Nara.
So the
Church of Christ.
The preacher was saying that when he started with them, they were even speaking in tongues, even in the church of Christ.
You will pour better your brother as a Filipina Asia.
Said there were several singing groups that would come to lead songs when the whole church is singing.
What you are pumping now or to you a war.
So in front of the pulpit, they are standing and then they are singing and then dancing.
Christians have more
in the church of Christ.
Or buy or the Yankopon sem egu ebi na obuso e the Yankopon sem egu na go.
And so he has used the word of God to just make sure that most of the acts or some of the things that he was doing would stop, and he's still using it, and that's when he had gone to.
Now, some of the in the kind said, "Oh, yeah, Bible."
And what the preacher said that he needs prayer. And all the troubles he's going through is the leaders.
The two leaders were.
Because he came to meet the leaders there.
The leaders now
and it was the leaders who were there who allowed for things to just go the way it was.
If you say,
because they have now shown the authority that things needs to happen that way.
It's one banana church said, this idea. And now we go when you say,
and so if you come and you are now teaching them that this is not the right thing to do, it means that you are now showing so much. You are so you are now condescending the authority. It's like the authority that they have is not of no authority. That's what you want to show them. And that's exactly how it is. He's saying that he needs prayers.
I'm not thankful.
And the Church of Christ, that's exactly how it is going. So it is not anything that this is the only church that is saving people or is bringing salvation. And Satan knows that this is the church that is bringing salvation. And so Satan is not going to sit and relax for us to continue to save. And anything that Satan is going to go through to drift us, it's going to do. It's going to go through our lives. It's going to go to the youth. Going to our wives. Going to the church leaders. Where do you stand? If you are a leader in the church, If you're a wife,
woyɛ bɛkunu bi,
if you're a youth,
woyɛ okunu bi,
if you're a husband,
ɛhe fa na wogyina?
where exactly?
Wɔne bere kwagye a Kristo asiesie de ama yɛn.
Are you forcefully going about the salvation Christ has given to us?
Ɛne ma kyɛw pa ne sɛ baabi a woteɛ no, tena hɔ yie.
And what is needed is for you to sit well.
Kɔ w'akyi na tena ase yie.
Go back and sit well.
Ne bɔ mmɔden sɛ deɛ Kyerɛwsɛm no aka no, ɛno na wode bɛyɛ adwuma.
Go back in the Bible to know that what the Bible has stated is what you are going to follow.
Firi sɛ biribiara ne hɔ no a motifoɔ bɛtumi aboa me no mmienu.
Because nothing at all is going to help us as Christians.
Gye sɛ ade nwoma yɛ ɛda te bi.
Unless the Bible.
Enti Paul sɛ yɛyɛ ne wɔn sɛ moatwe mo ho ntɛm sɛ.
And so Paul is saying that he was amazed that they have drifted so early.
So soon. Ntɛm sɛ kyerɛ sɛ ankyɛ na wɔn ɛwɔ
It means that it's been so quick. It was too early for them to drift away.
asafo yɛ di nfie sɛ.
The church, how old are we?
Hɛn yɛ bɔbrɛ.
How do we measure ourselves?
Yɛba yɛwo abɔfra na odi mfie mmienu na ɔda so ebutu hɔ. Odi mfie mmiɛnsa na ɔda so butu hɔ. Deɛ deɛ yɛ.
So if we give birth to a child and after 2 years, after 3 years, the child is still crawling and unable to walk, what are we going to do?
Utie yie na ɔnante a afei na furu ya na ɛyɛ kɛseɛ.
And if you are okay, if you are lucky enough and the child begins to walk, you see that they have their abdomen converted.
Na ne moma so yɛ hyɛn.
And now the forehead is becoming shiny.
Na afei wɔnyɛ buroni ne ti nyɛ hyɛ ase yi akas.
And now the hair is also becoming red.
Deɛ na wɔbɛyɛ.
What are you going to do?
Deɛ ɛka kyerɛ wo sɛ aduane nnuro ne aduane bi a abɔfra no hia ansa na wɔnyini prɔmprɔm no wɔnya ne saa.
What it is telling you is that the nutrients that this child needs to have before it can grow, it is not having it.
Enti Kristo asafo a ɛtwa sɛ nyini kɔ botaeɛ a Onyankopɔn asusu de ama yɛn no Kristo asafo no ɛntumi nyini nkɔ saa na huhu mu no yɛnyɛ aduane a Kristo ɛde maa yɛn.
And so the church that needs to grow and develop as Christ wants it, if it is not, that means that the nutrients that the church needs, it is not having it.
Enti abɔfra no wode ne kɔ hospital de a asɔre no nso no fa ne kɔ hospital ɛba
If you are going to take a child to the hospital, then the church needs to also go to the school, which is the Bible.
Enti wobɛgye brɛ esua Bible no ɛhwehwɛ mu deɛ Bible ne ka na waso mu ayɛ ne saa ansa na
You are going to spend time to read through the Bible and know what the Bible is saying.
ansa na asafo no ɛtumi asiri nanso bi.
Before the church will be able to come back to its developmental stage.
Pastor verse 9, time mami. Galatians 1, verse 9. So, ɔsi ɛsɛbɛ mi kan no kane no. Sese mi sa kane biem. Ɔsi onipa foforɔ de asɛm foforɔ biara ɛbɛto yɛn ni mu a. Sɛbi ɛgye ne kane no a. Sɛ nipa no onwie. Eti ehu ɛso de nipa biara a ɔsesa Nyankopɔn asɛm no so.
And so this is very serious, especially to those who are going to be preaching the word.
Nipa pii wɔ hɔ nom a wɔn pɛ nkwagyeɛ no wɔn mu nkwagyeɛ.
There are so many people who do not want the salvation.
Ɛnu ti no so wɔn pɛ a wɔn nso wɔn ma wɔn pɛ
So if
fɔɔ.
you do not like it, you're also not going to like it.
Ɔno asɛlɛkti ni die o.
They have selected what they want.
Na nso ɔpɛ sɛ wɔkyerɛ wɔn nso deɛ kyɛ sɛ oyie.
And wants to also inform you how many you can also select.
Sɛ nipa no yɛ wɔn mu a wɔn kura atorɔ nkyerɛkyerɛ a wɔn bɛ wi asafo.
These are individuals who are holding on to false teachings that are ready to drift the church away.
Ma asafo no yira na nidasoɔ.
So that the vision of the church or the hope the church is going to lose it.
Ma ankorankora so yira na
So
nidasoɔ.
that the individuals are hope we are also going to lose it.
Emblem Christian University, US. Ɔmo nkɔmɔ bi a nkenkan. Wɔn ɛte school ni sɛ ɔmo ne tete asafo.
So you read a book from Emblem Christian University. They wrote a book that they wanted to use to educate preachers.
Na ɔmo ne te asafo pii.
They were able to develop a lot of preachers.
Edu mmerɛ bi no ɛnimnifo hyia sɛ Kristo asafo mma no wɔn mu nyina etwa sɛ wɔn ekɔ school mu ahodoɔ universities ekosua adeɛ.
As we got to a time when they were developing the Christian youth, they were told that they needed to go to universities to learn.
Na ɔmo kɔ hɔ nom a na ɔmo akɔ akosua sɛ Genesis ɛyɛ myth.
And so when they were going through these universities, they were learning that the Genesis was a myth, it was just a story.
Nyankopɔn biara ni wiase.
There were no God.
Na nipa evolution saa na ɔmo yɛɛyɛ book bi a mehu wɔ secondary school nipa yɛ tɛfrɛ menim do ye no nipa ye ntafro ana etuamua ebeye.
And so the theories of evolution, he was saying that he read a book, I saw a book that human being is now compared to a cockroach. That this cockroach now developed, go through developmental stages and now became a man.
Maybe I don't believe no copy university. The young papa I am contact or be fear cast school you go here or be church I put on say Peter as oh send the pie to be
So he knew a man, and then the brother-in-law of that person he went to learn something and now coming to teach the brother. He's also a Christian brother. That man is Esparigloric.
No. Now, I put to be blame. And they did more every year and more be. Then one did more by a different did more by a chimpanzee, no, it's chimpanzee, no, every year, final impact. It's a different thing to be too.
The developmental stage is more confusing. That's from Sparagira to cockroach, from cockroach to chimpanzee, from chimpanzee to human. This is what someone has learned, that this is the evolution of man.
What did you?
And this person has been it.
Well, promise and
he's held on to this and he's now dead.
And to you a son and a coso.
And currently in the US, this is what's happening.
I have to do a coso.
In the UK, it's happening here.
And the Christian University here again said, one more MSC school, no?
And so this university had the minds that they were going to now change the school.
Now, over the school, university, a bishop.
And now include the university.
They also said, you can say lecturers, you know, to me, Church of Christ, you can say outsiders, ever.
And so what they did was, you couldn't now just employ only lecturers who are members of the church, they needed to employ other people as well.
Now, or more employ, sir, if it's going
they employed to the extent that they now employ atheists to be part of it.
And my own church, this is from Marseille, Genesis 1 is a myth.
And these atheists came to now teach Christian brothers and sisters that Genesis 1 is a myth.
Miss, and one by them, school leaders, our Church of Christ members, they defend the lecture.
And when this came out to light and people now began to realize what is going on, these leaders of the school now began to now protect them and defend them, and what they are saying is right. So in a short of all I'm saying is that we humans, we cannot do anything to add on to the beauty of the church is that the youth will understand Christianity. So that wherever they are exposed to, whether it's atheism, anything outside of Christianity, they will not fall for it. The responsibility of the family is to also nurture these kids to ensure that they have a fear of God.
And school can say,
and so you cannot just start a school to say that I'm just developing Christian youth for them to be learners in the near future. It's not the duty of the church.
Break time.
It's time for break.